For centuries, marriage in China has been deeply influenced by the Confucian tradition, which has led the family ethic of male superiority and female inferiority. Traditionally, Chinese women have virtually no rights in marriage, and behind this lies a long-standing, systematic suppression of women. In the traditional view, marriage is but a continuation of the family's interests, and women were regarded as means to that end, subordinate to the family's will and male authority. The fact that a wife was not much more than a physical piece of her husband's property is further illustrated in the ancient practice of foot binding. Girls from age 3 upwards had their feet crushed in bindings for years in the belief that the resulting small feet would appeal to her future husband. Additionally, when women became part of their husband's family, they had to abide by the 3 followings, or senkong, which dictates that women were subordinate to first their fathers, then their husbands, and finally, in the case of being left a widow, their sons. Unsurprisingly, under the cruel oppression of arranged marriages and patriarchal systems, women do not have the right to choose their partners, nor can they inherit family property and have no property rights in their husbands' families. Women are often physically ill-treated, socially segregated, and forced to compete for their husbands' affections with concubines. A woman's place in the family was truly an unenviable one. This, however, began to change at the dawn of the 20th century. With the modernization of China's economy and the rise of the New Culture movement, China's marriage system underwent profound changes. As living standards began to improve, so did people's perspectives and opinions. The passing of the marriage law in 1950 was a landmark step, which prohibits arranged and forced marriages, polygamy, and child marriages, explicitly stating that men and women were free to marry and had equal rights, which was not only a breakthrough in the legal system, but also a tremendous change in the conception of society, granting women the freedom of marriage and the right to marry. The adoption of the marriage law of the People's Republic of China on April 13, 1950, abolished the feudal system of arranged marriages and concubinage and emphasized equality between men and women and the freedom of marriage, which was a milestone in the modernization of the legal system. 1980 amendments to the marriage law established the freedom of divorce and the mechanism for the division of property, and 2001 amendments to the marriage law further improved the protection of marital property, emphasizing the principle of distribution of joint property and the protection of women's rights and interests. The 2016 law against domestic violence signaled that China's attention to women's marital rights can no longer be faulted.
Despite the formal equality brought about by the law, the cultural influence of traditional attitudes has been deeply rooted in people's behavioral habits, and many women still find it difficult to break free from their traditional roles when faced with complex family and social structures. The new contradictions of modern society still limit women's rights in marriage. First, in property disputes, society and culture still uphold a somewhat male-first mentality. Although the law provides for the equal division of property between husband and wife, the traditional belief that the family property belongs to the man is still deeply rooted. Most family property, e.g. real estate, is still registered in the name of the man in a marriage, which leaves women facing serious inequities in the event of a divorce. In addition, the premarital property independence clause in the law has been used to weaken women's security of family wealth, especially in cases where women are financially dependent on men. Secondly, the so-called cooling-off period for divorce has become a continuation of a new form of emotional control, with the introduction of the cooling-off period for divorce in 2021 seemingly aimed at reducing impulsive divorces, but in reality it has become a tool for men to manipulate marriages. Many women are unable to dissolve their marriages in time due to domestic violence or emotional control, and even choose to compromise due to the pressure of the cooling-off period. This phenomenon is closely related to the traditional cultural concept of peace is precious, and the social stigmatization of women's divorces adds to the enormous psychological pressure women face when facing failed marriages. Finally, and most difficult to solve, modern women bear a huge weight of double burden. In the traditional model, women are regarded as the core of the family, while in the modern society, women are required to play dual roles in the workplace and the family. This pressure often leads to women always having to give up their careers in order to fulfill the needs of the family in marriage. This contradiction stems from the conflict between the traditional expectations of women as good wives and mothers, and the demands of modern society for women's economic contribution.
We're here to explore a corner of China that is known as the Kingdom of Women, the home of the Moso, an ethnic minority group of about 40,000 people. For centuries, these cloud-covered mountains sealed off their secrets, the lessons they could teach us all. But now, as the region becomes more accessible, the modern world is threatening their unique way of life. To help us understand a society very different from our own, so we asked Weihong Chu, author of a book titled The Kingdom of Women. As a corporate lawyer working in Singapore and Los Angeles, she was fed up with her male-dominated workplace. A visit here 10 years ago transformed her life forever. But outside this tiny corner of the world, the problems confronting women today are no laughing matter. And the Moso language shows how profoundly different a society can be when men don't have power over women. Family name and all their property, but women are worshipped here, literally. There's a female goddess named Gemu. I'm hiking up to her shrine. In their local religion, she's the most revered among all their gods and goddesses, and worshipped precisely for her female spirit. They hold a huge festival every year in her honor. But just how long will that tradition last? Increasingly, tourism is changing this once isolated society. Blumenfield says Moso culture is still unique, even with the changes, and there's great hope that this ancient kingdom of women and its progressive ideals will survive in a modern world.
If the Moso idea dies off, then we would have lost a very precious thing in humanity, I think, for womanhood.